some definitions for our recovery as women. Just to remind you, I'll probably do an entire little video on trauma. I believe that much of what we experience is trauma related, and so I'm going to talk about triggers and slips and relapses and even a lapse, and what recovery looks like for me, and abstinence for me. So a trigger for me is, for instance, if I am with my husband, or even I could be by myself, and I'm at the grocery store, and some young woman with a very short skirt and lots of cleavage is coming down the aisle. That's a trigger. And I think it's mostly about, I'm triggered about what my husband's response would be to that. And then if I go with that trigger and I stay there in that place of, and I let the fear come up, which is my husband might be lusting after that person, that will be a slip for me. Now, I didn't anticipate that, and a slip is something that I didn't anticipate, and it just comes at me. And I might actually, in my head, go to my fear, and in my heart. And I'll feel that fear, and I might even want to hold on to it because I don't know what to do with it, or I might even get angry about it. And so the fear creates the angry feelings and the resentment of, this is what my husband's behavior has done to me. So that can be a slip. And that slip is something that I need to work through quickly, within a pretty short amount of time, so that I can get back to the serenity that I desire. So I can call my sponsor, and I can, if I'm in a place, my husband and I are in a place of recovery together, I can be honest with him that I had a slip and what the trigger was. That helps us in our recovery together. If he's not working his recovery, and you don't feel safe with expressing that, talk with his sponsor first and work through. But I really feel like I have to be honest with my feelings with my husband, no matter what. It's part of my recovery. So we've talked about triggers and slips, but what about a lapse? A lapse is something where I have preoccupied, I've been in preoccupation out of fear and maybe even shame, and I've been thinking about this, and I go to resentment, and then I act out. For instance, I might check his emails. If my husband has been communicating with someone, and I know that, and there's fear that he might be doing that again, I might be spending some time checking his emails. If I, within a fairly short amount of time, maybe even a day, and I recognize how detrimental, how destructive that has been to my internal feeling of serenity and peace, then I need to get real honest, call my sponsor, and make amends to my husband. That is challenging. Making amends to my husband when I know that his behavior has caused me so much trauma and pain. But it's really an important part of my recovery. Being honest. That brings humility. When I recognize that I have done something that is not part of who I want to be. I haven't been true to myself. So then a relapse is different in usually the amount of time that that I can get involved with the behavior, policing, or I would call it crazy behavior. What if the mom puts her 2 little kids in the car at 11 o'clock at night and is driving around looking at all the strip clubs to see if her husband's car is there? And then she continues to do that night after night for some time. That would be a relapse. Or a woman who just goes to so much fear, and she puts 4 to 5 hours of checking her husband's emails, his phone, and she knows that she's lost her serenity. That would be a relapse. Now, I recognize that these are all based on trauma.